Hey guys, thanks for joining us this week. To help us grow, please like and subscribe. Enjoy the show. Today we have Steve. Steve is has a bachelor's of sports science, has been teaching personal training for over 20 years, including yours truly. Steve has been coaching athletes for almost longer than I've been alive. Steve runs one of it's true, Steve. One of the best weightlifting gyms in Australia, I would say personally, because I've been there quite a few times, and it is outstanding. It's very good. What Steve doesn't know is that he is a mentor of mine. Not in the way that I email him constantly, because that would just annoy Steve to no end, I bet. But in the way that I still remember the lessons he gave me 10 years ago, and I still recall all that sort of stuff. And I think to myself at times, what would Steve do? And it kind of shaped my idea of, the possibilities that we can do with ourselves in the gym, and not being held to, silly things like don't press behind your neck and stuff like that we've kind of been taught over time. And I've sort of, having heard you argue or debate, if you will, with some of the other teachers about stuff like that, and seeing your point of view just made me feel like, well, and I also have this thing where I'm a little bit of a contrarian as well. So I kind of like to go against the grain a little bit sometimes too. But can you give us a general overview of how weightlifting can, because, well, basically what we do on this podcast, we talk about athletic performance, generally speaking. So we want to look at all the different aspects of what of how we can improve our athletic performance. And one of the age-old ones is weightlifting, really, because weightlifting, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we know a great deal of what we know about sports science and conditioning in general because of the Soviet weightlifters.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people are getting those journals now that have been translated from Russian to English, even though some of them are written in the 60s and 70s and 80s. People are referring to them a lot more now. And you're 100% right. The Russians did do a lot of testing, and they were allowed to do the testing because it was a state-run business, So they could basically do what they wanted, even though it might have been a little bit ethically wrong and morally wrong. They could still do experiments on athletes to find out what athletes could do. As far as athletic development is concerned, I think. So it depends on a lot of different things, okay? But I personally think that if we were looking at athletic development, we have to start in the school system. So I personally think that we should have PE coaches in primary school, and we should have, PE teachers at primary school and coaches in high school. And then from there, kids in primary school should be taught, one, how to swim, how to do gymnastics, how to do weightlifting, and potentially maybe one martial art, something like judo or something, where they can learn to defend themselves and so forth. So I think there's a good grounding with those four.
That's actually going to get to our question we'll go a little bit later on about, it's one of the questions I like to ask everyone, because it's kind of like, it gives I think everyone's got their own point of view on how this should be done, but how to raise a kid from through to, like, from being young to being approaching professional kind of age. Sorry, go on, Steve. So you're talking about how we should be introducing a lot of different aspects of sport. So they should have PE teachers when they're when they're in primary school, coaches when they're in high school, and then they should have learned a few different sports like swimming and martial arts a little bit along the way. Do you think because this builds a solid sort of foundation for?
Well, I think it would, because I just have to just mention one other thing. Those coaches that I'm talking about in high school is not your maths teacher who's got go on and do a weekend coaching course.
Yep.
I'm talking about people who are coaches.
Yes.
And they go in and they look after the coaching side of things. So, yeah, it's not like, sure, a maths teacher can do it, but, you know, they've got to have that burning interest in that particular activity. So
and it's usually just that they're the only ones willing to do it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we don't have that system here in this country. So, yeah, but if you're talking about athletic development, again, it depends upon who do you have in front of you. So we have lots of different people. You might hear a little bit of grunting and groaning in the background.
Yeah.
If it gets too loud, I'll close the door.
Yeah, for all of you who don't really know, like Steve's in his office right now. Are you upstairs in the gym?
But what was that?
Are you upstairs in the gym?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, so if it does get a little bit noisy, because I don't know who's going to turn up, because again, training's late today.
Weightlifting's a noisy sport.
But
I'm more talking about, so let's say from the weightlifting perspective. We've got Steve Tikkanen in the gym. Yeah.
So you come to us and you say that you want to get better at something. Okay. Well, what's your athletic background? So the first thing I do, if you tell me that you've got an athletic background and you've done stuff before, okay, well, have you ever done Olympic weightlifting stuff? No. Okay, I want you to show me how you back squat, how you military press, and how you deadlift. That gives me a rough idea on how you move and what your understanding of those three exercises are. From there, we'll then take you into the weightlifting side of things. If you tell us that you've done weightlifting before, now I want you to show me how you snatch, okay, how you clean and jerk, and how you front squat. I want to see what you do from that point of view. Are you still there, mate? Because yep.
Yeah.
The picture froze for a second.
Yeah, no, I heard it kind of freeze on the audio as well.
Yeah. So then if you come to us and you say, I've never done anything before, then the very first thing I make someone do is not with a skipping rope, but to skip, like they're skipping along the street, all happy they've just won $1 million, whatever.
Right.
Because there are lots and lots of people who are not athletic and who can't skip. Okay, so I just want to see if you haven't done anything, whether you're athletic or not.
And you feel like that's a sign of athleticism?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. I think skipping, that basic ability to skip, shows me that you can pop off the ground.
Oh, okay.
That you have that coordination to basically double hop off each foot. So it's hop, 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 hop. So you're going left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right.
Yep.
And that tells me that you have this coordination and this ability to do that. So that's where I start from. Okay. Then really the ability of the person to learn. Everyone learns at their own pace, you know. So everyone tries to keep up at a particular thing. The guys that we have downstairs right now, some of them have been with us for a few years, and they're starting to just understand. Oh, I think I'm understanding how to snatch now, Steve. And people have to go through an apprenticeship.
Oh,
everyone wants to be able to snatch their body weight, you know, yesterday. And it doesn't happen. Like, you've got to take your time, and that's a bit of a killer.
Yes, it is
for the sport itself.
Yeah, I found that when coaching people because what we tend to do in our business is sort of go through more of a powerlifting style, you know, foundational lift. So squat, bench, deadlift, or squat, bench, you know, military press. Squat, deadlift, military press. But you know, when they get a bit more advanced and understand the movements of how to squat and deadlift, especially, you know, then we start to move into weightlifting, and it takes a lot of patience for these athletes to then understand that weightlifting is going to be a lot slower, because the technical aspects, you know, it takes a long time to develop those neurological patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've written a 9-session introductory weightlifting sort of thing. Hang on, just going to close this door.
No, all good.
There's obviously more people down there than I think. So we give them a 9-session fundamental training thing. We go through basically a teaching process that Pete, the other owner, and I go through. Pete wrote the 9 sessions, and we give that to people who have never done weightlifting before. And basically we allow people the time to develop. They're all going to have slightly different techniques. I know there's a lot of people who are very hardcore. You have to stay in one position, or you have to hop back, and all that sort of stuff. That's fine. That's their philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is a little bit more open than that. We certainly don't want people to jump forward, but again, there are world champions that jump forward. So we're just happy to get them moving. Okay, everyone will learn how to power snatch, but we really try to get past that as quickly as we can to get them snatching.
Yep.
And even though it might be a little rough, I still want them to do it quickly.
Yes.
Because I want them to learn that they have to turn those muscle spindles off, for those that understand muscle spindles.
Yes.
I really need those muscle spindles to not engage so they can hit the rock bottom.
That is so tough. But especially the longer you've been power snatching, the harder that is to get to happen, I've noticed.
That's why we try to skip through that very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, so we try to, okay, you can power snatch now let's start snatching immediately. So power snatch becomes, in a way, an obsolete exercise for our beginners.
There you go.
As well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and how do you feel like weightlifting, so just to give our audience an idea of what this means to their athletic performance, what attributes do you see weightlifting lending to different sports, say sports like soccer or rugby, for example?
Well, the biggest thing that let's just say, I'll go to weightlifting specifically in a sec, but just training in general is going to make the athlete more robust. That athlete's going to have the ability to back up, that ability to be knocked over, to stand back up again, to back up week to week training sessions. So it's the robustness that the training gives them. The only way that you're going to be a good soccer player is by playing soccer and having an understanding and the coordination to play that particular sport. Weightlifting, strength training is not going to give you that. All it can do is make you stronger. So again, it depends upon people's beliefs. Is strength the most important thing that an athlete can or should have? And I certainly fall in that line. I think strength is incredibly important.
Yes.
But there's a limit. I don't need a soccer player, using the example that you used. I don't need a soccer player to be world record powerlifter. I just need a soccer player to be stronger. How much stronger? Stronger enough for them to be able to do the things I mentioned before, the ability to stand up, get knocked over, stand up again, back up week to week, training sessions, recover really quickly and all that sort of stuff. So it changes from person to person. And so if we go down the weightlifting side of things, now that we've got those people stronger, okay, now what do we want to do? Well, we want to add some speed into their movement. And there's Fred Hatfield, the great powerlifter, Dr. Fred Hatfield said, Dr. Squat, no man or woman lifts a weight slowly. Everyone tries to lift a weight quickly. It's just that it moves slowly because it's so heavy. So then we look at, well, if the movement is occurring so slowly, then it's a fatigue management issue, is it not? Because if you fatigue before you can lift the weight, then you're going to drop the weight. So now it's the fatigue management. So, okay, so how do we make you lift the quickest way? Well, we can work on your speed, but we also have to make sure that you're efficient. So now technique becomes important, because now you're pulling in the shortest distance possible, which will therefore potentially lift it in the shortest amount of time possible. So that's fatigue management. So, you're looking at a whole bunch of things, but with the weightlifting side of things, we're just trying to make them move quicker. Now,
Yes.
I said before that we try to get through the power snatch quickly and get them snatching for a soccer player. Would I bother really that much with power snatch and snatch? No. So power clean, yes. Clean, yes. But even squatting and all the other movements, we're trying to make them move quickly. Clean pulls, even deadlifts, even if it's a big grindy deadlift, the intention is to move quickly.
Yes.
Okay. So then it goes, well, how many reps are we doing? Well, I don't want to bulk this guy up to be, the next Ronnie Coleman.
Yes.
So let's just do a couple of reps with quite a large number of sets. So we're never under time. The time under tension is relatively short because I don't want to bulk them up.
Yes.
I certainly don't want them to leave the gym and then in 3 months they've got to buy new shorts and a new soccer jersey because they can't fit in it. That's not what I want. That's not what we're trying to do for them. So there's a whole bunch of things that weightlifting can do because that's how we train. That's how a weightlifter trains. We don't try to bulk up. We just do our small number of repetitions for our weightlifting stuff. Sure, we do more repetitions for our strength stuff. And then we have all our accessory work where we're working on the things that we believe that we have to work on to make, whether it's a joint or a muscle or a movement or whatever, stronger.
Exactly. And so the whole idea of strength, which I totally agree with you. I'm a big strength guy too. I think, if you don't have strength, you couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. You need some strength. It's just as fundamental as that, and I think one of my other favorite strength and conditioning coaches, apart from you, Steve, said that general improves specific.
Yep. I don't disagree with that. We do quite a lot of assistance exercises. Now we have, I don't know, a dozen machines in the gym, maybe a dozen machines, but they've been handpicked. So we can do 4 different posterior chain exercises on our machines. We can do lat pull down, but independent arms because we bought an isolateral hammer strength lat pull down. So we're very particular in what we've bought on to make our athletes stronger and stronger. So most of our work is obviously bar work, but we've got machines in there, and our guys jump on those machines and they train on those machines to make them stronger. And the senior members of our gym, they just pick what they want. They're smart enough to pick what they want. So they go away and they do that.
They go do that. And what I was kind of alluding to there is that when that strength coach said that general improves specific, it means that, there's very little times on the soccer field you're ever going to have to squat. But we do know that having squat, even though it's not specific to your sport, will improve your force development, therefore improve your speed. And so being in the gym doing weightlifting is essentially the same kind of deal. You improving your force development because there's a difference between do you ever hear that argument? What do you think about that argument? It's always the weightlifters versus the powerlifters, I suppose, and it's like powerlifters don't see any need for weightlifting, and obviously weightlifters defend that and think that no, weightlifting is important for the athletic development. And I think one of the best arguments I've ever heard for this was that, you could get similar adaptations if you pull the bar really fast in a deadlift. But the thing is, you need to pull the bar really fast in a clean. You don't need to do it in a deadlift. And then that's the difference.
Yeah, I still think that you would find that most world champions, if we use a deadlift as an example, are going to put pre-tension on that bar, so the bar is bent, and then they're going to attempt to move that bar as quickly as they can. So again, they manage their fatigue, right, as they're standing up, because if they get stuck at some point, then fatigue is building and they're going to potentially drop that weight. Louis Simmons is a very good example of someone who uses lots of Russian methods. Mark Rippertoe, also along the same, even though they probably would, disagree with each other on a lot of things, fundamentally they're essentially talking about the same thing as far as lifting. And again, I use Dr. Fred Hatfield. Nobody lifts a big weight slowly, and I defy anyone to say that they do. If you're deliberately trying to deadlift 300 kilos and you're deliberately trying to lift it to take 10 seconds, I'm going to say that you're going to fail. But if your aim is to put tension on that bar and pull that bar as hard as you can to stand up, sure, it might take you close to 10 seconds, just as an example, to stand up with it, but that's not your intention. Your intention is to stand up with that bar as quickly as you can.
Exactly. You can't lift heavy things slow.
No.
You just can't. It's not bodybuilding. You can lift 60% slow.
Yeah.
You couldn't lift 100% slow. It's just impossible.
No, that's right. It's
exactly.
You can't do it. It looks slow, but that's to the novice. They don't understand what's happening within that lift. People go, oh, geez, that was such a grindy deadlift. Geez, they move slow.
Yeah,
well, they don't understand what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you train your non-weightlifters, non-weightlifting athletes differently than you train your weightlifting athletes?
Yep. So we've got 2 programs at the moment. So we have essentially a weightlifting program for the weightlifters and for the non-weightlifters if they choose to do it. So if I have a non-weightlifter, they can choose to do the weightlifting program, and we have it's like a modified powerlifting program. There's very little bench in it, okay, but we do squat and we deadlift quite a lot with the non-weightlifters. They squat and deadlift a lot. I think one of the guys was talking to me last night, Ivan, and he mentioned to me that he's deadlifting in the current program. From memory, 3 or 4 times a week. I can't remember exactly.
Oh wow, that's quite a lot.
But that's not heavy every time. Remember, I'm not burning out his central nervous system. Okay, so don't everyone freak out. So he's doing some light stuff. He's doing some medium stuff, and he's doing a little bit of heavy stuff. No one's flat out heavy at the moment, so everything's sub-maximal at the moment. But in the next couple of weeks, our guys will ramp it up even more. But as I ramp the training up into those singles and doubles, we're going to do lot of heavy doubles in this new program. They're still going to be training at some sessions at 65% of their 1RM and 85% of their 1RM. And then the other day, as I said, it'll be just a heavy double. There won't be any heavy singles in this program. So I'm aware of not burning people out because they've got other exercises to do, but you have to also remember I'm moving from 4 to 5 exercises a session to 2 exercises a session.
Yep.
So for 3 weeks, these guys are going to drop down to 2, possibly 3 exercises per session. So it's nearly half the number of exercises depending upon the day. So that's why I say 4 to 5 and 2 to 3.
This isn't a question I've prepared, but I was kind of interested. How would you, let's say, take a rugby player from the start of their off season to the on season?
Yeah. So again, it depends on the age. We have a young fella who's just joined us. He's 19 years old, and so I did my testing with him. So I do a couple of little tests. He could skip, so that was good. And then I test for his squatting flexibility. I got 3 tests for that, and we find very quickly that the big issue with most people is upper body inflexibility. They can generally squat okay, but their upper body is so tight from whether it's from bench pressing or packing scrums or whatever. This young fella, his upper body wasn't very flexible. So we work on that flexibility. He's currently doing very much a powerlifting program. He is in his rugby season. Okay, he is playing rugby. He's only training twice a week. He basically comes in and does deadlifts because the squatting for him at the moment is not ideal, but he can deadlift pretty good, and it's pretty close to him scrummage, rucking and mauling. So exactly. Yeah, so we do deadlifts, both conventional and sumo style deadlifts. He's doing a lot of rowing work. We've got to get his back a lot stronger. So again, to me, it's very individual. I don't tend to have sort of
A template.
predetermined packages that I look at. I sort of look at the person, and then I sort of go into the archive and pull out a program. And if I don't have a pre-written program already that sort of covers that person, I'll find one that's pretty close, and then I'll just modify it, because I've got so many programs.
Of course, it'd be silly to go ahead and write a brand new brand new program every time you got someone coming in. It's just people don't understand how long it takes to write one of these things.
Yeah, I've got plenty. I've got so many programs, and they've all got different names, and I tend to remember most of the names. Some of them I forget, and then I either have a program that I think is appropriate, or I find a program that's really close and I change a couple of exercises. So I tend to have a look at the position that the player's in, and this young fella's a prop. Hang on. Yep. Yeah, mate.
And for a lot of you guys who don't know what a prop is, a prop's a big guy on the field. He's not generally very tall. He's mostly almost round shape, and he's a big guy. The scrum up.
Yeah, the prop has changed over the years. In my day, in dinosaur days, not so quick, just specialist scrummager, rucking and mauling. Props now are much more skillful with their hands and much more able to run around the field than what they were back in the 80s. But so we look at those things, and it's very, very much pulling out an old program. So I can't go all the way through from pre-season to season.
Would you have like an overarching periodization that you might look at? Maybe just starting off with, would you look at endurance maybe to start with, and then maybe move into other?
No, I don't do any endurance. I don't do any endurance work. That's up to them to do. They're going to do their pre-season rugby training, or they're going to do their in-season rugby training. They're going to do enough running around and stuff. I really shouldn't have to worry about that.
Sure.
Basically, it depends upon the person.
Mm-hmm.
So just about every program in the world has some sort of linear progression.
Well, you'd hope so.
So, and whether you use a conjugate system or concurrent, whatever system you want to use, they all have a place, and they all can work wonders for everybody, especially when you have someone new. But I tend to use a step program, so we tend to work at a particular set and rep range, and I increase that by one set per week. Everything's done on 3 weeks, so every program's changed every 3 weeks. The more advanced guys, I know what their percentages are. I know what their 1RMs are. I know all of that because we track it all. And so we will use a step program. So we'll do 3 weeks of a particular percentage, and then we'll go up for another 3 weeks of another percentage and up. And again, the program could be 9 to 12 weeks long. It just depends. And so that's the system that I use. Everything's open to me, but I tend to like the step program because we stay at one percentage for 3 weeks, and the athlete's volume goes up only by 1 set. So we might do, 3 sets of, or even 2 sets of 4 in some cases, week 1, and 3 sets of 4, and then 4 sets of 4. And then we go up percentage, and then we drop back down again, depending on the percentage. And they get used to lifting those weights and being successful with those weights.
And just increasing the volume of the amount.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so right now the guys are in the middle of a 3-week thing. I can't remember what sets and reps they're doing now, but they're all complaining at the last set that they're really fatigued, and that's really what I'm looking for. But they all know they're going up by 1 set next week, but it's the same percentage. So mentally, it's not, oh damn, I have to lift more weight. It's damn, I just got to do 3 more reps.
Yeah.
So that's the system that I tend to use more than anything else. But again, I have no issue clicking around using any other systems.
Of course. So you're not married to anything in particular, and there's more just getting the cat. Yeah, and that's a healthy attitude. Do you think all athletes should do weightlifting, or do you think that it doesn't maybe matter that much, but or do you think there's maybe ideally that's maybe where you'd sort of what athletes should do?
I think everyone should do weights lifting. Right? I do. I think everyone should do weightlifting. As I said in the beginning, I think kids
Do you
should
mean
do
weightlifting or weight training?
No, weightlifting. So I think kids should do weightlifting. Okay, nothing has to be heavy. All of these fears that people have. Look at the US, look at Finland. You'll find all these little kids all doing weightlifting, all competing in weightlifting. No issues, no dramas, no stunting growth, none of that sort of stuff occurring. But I think we all need to do fast twitch stuff. The big problem is that as we age, we all suffer sarcopenia. We all start to lose fast twitch muscle fiber. Instead of a trip, a trip becomes a fall. So if you have more fast twitch fiber, then you're able to get that foot out in front of you and stop you from falling over. Sure, you'll trip, but it'll stop you from falling over.
Yes.
And if we can stop a whole bunch of old people falling over because they've continued to train as quickly as they can, move as quickly as they can, whether they do Olympic weightlifting type of movements, which again, I've had quite a lot of older women. They tend to be in their 60s and they're in their power cleaning and doing all that sort of stuff. And
there is quite the difference. You can tell, and I'm sure it's not just because they're old, but there is there's something that happens to the movement as they get older. It's quite you'd have to sort of see it for yourself. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, well, like I said, we all start to lose muscle mass. That's the natural thing. That's called sarcopenia. A lot of that muscle mass that we're losing is fast twitch muscle mass. And remember, we're all built with different amounts. I think Usain Bolt will still be able to run, 100 meters quicker than anyone at the age of 60 because he's just full of fast twitch muscle fiber. But if we can hang on to as much fast twitch muscle fiber as we can, then some of the issues that we have add that balance work in there. You're going to have a lot healthier elderly population in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that are able then to potentially stop themselves from falling over because they just do have that fast twitch fiber. Some people are born with very little. They're your ultra marathoners. So, I'd like to hang on to as much fast twitch fiber as I can for them.
Yeah, of course.
And doing 2 or 3 reps, for an elderly person is not going to, irritate that joint if they have a dodgy joint, from something that they've done as a kid in the past. So, there's irritation as well.
There's one thing that you taught me is that there's no such thing as a contradictive exercise. Only contradictive people for the exercise. Could you?
I actually did a Instagram thing on that the other day, not that long ago, and I stand by that. I don't think there are any contraindicated exercises except there's just contraindicated people. And the example that I gave in my Instagram thing is that everyone will consider swimming as a fantastic way of training your heart and lungs, but it's a contraindicated exercise for those that can't swim. So you're going to drown.
Yeah, of course.
So it's not the swimming that's contraindicated, it's the person that's going to drown that's contraindicated.
Yeah.
There are lots of things out there that you and I can't do, and we watch athletes do, and you think, man, how did they do that? Well, you would say, well, potentially what they're doing is contraindicated. Is it really? It isn't for them because they can repeat it week after week, day after day.
Exactly. So, I remember a discussion that you're having one day. Let's call it a debate with one of the teachers. It was slightly heated, and there's many examples of this, but it's like I think one of the people at TAFE, they were doing a bent over row, and I think it looked more like a Penlay row. So basically pulling the bar off the ground up to their chest, and their knees are kind of like in a Romanian deadlift kind of position. And I think they were maybe even slightly tilted past parallel, you know. And the teacher approached him and said, "Listen, you shouldn't do that. Your core switches off at this degree." And at which you came in and you're like, "No, no, no, this is fine."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, it is fine. If you have a look at the traditional way of doing a bent over row, is essentially what everyone now calls a pen lay row. There's an example of Mark Rippertoe doing the bent over row, and you touch the ground every single rep. Okay, and you pull the bar up. Yes, you're going to have some people who are going to be slightly longer in the leg and shorter in the torso, and yes, potentially a little bit short in the arm, and potentially their hips are going to be up a little bit. Well, then just put a plate underneath put a plate flat on the ground, so the person's ground is now elevated, so they're able to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of arguments for having the bar floating, and then there's arguments about putting the bar on the ground. Both are fine. Like, there's no issue. It's just what you don't want to do is you don't want to be swinging around everywhere.
Yes.
Okay, with a big heavy weight and then walking around or doing the exercise like a pigeon with its head going backwards and forwards. You just want to be nice and solid, pull that bar up, put it back down, whether it's floating or on the ground. So yeah, there's lots and lots of people just don't get it. And when you're in that pen lay row position, you're not turning anything off. Nothing's happening. It's all good. Everything's working how it should be working. You know, and the biggest thing is that, yes, you're going to pull with your arms, but you really should be trying to initiate that movement with your back, with your rhomboids and all that sort of stuff. All those upper body muscles. And, you know, if you're not that flexible, your hamstrings are going to be screaming at you and all that.
Yeah.
But that's all good stuff. That's just you doing several exercises in one exercise.
Exactly.
You know,
And you know, and those things screaming at you, that's just, you know, showing that your body's going through is uncomfortable, therefore it'll go through an adaptation to correct that.
Yeah, absolutely. As other chefs said, the Bulgarian coach, whatever you think of him, you know, Bulgarian weightlifting system, whatever. But as he said, the organism must adapt, and that's us. We are the organism, and we have to adapt. It's like a rehab thing. You go, you get injured, you go to you sit down, you rest your limb, but then we need to get you up and moving because we have to now make the organism adapt to be able to get you to stand up. Then we have to make the organism adapt so it can walk. Then the organism has to adapt to run, and then the organism has to adapt to be able to play sport. So if we don't do any of that stuff, if we don't go through that stuff, then you're never going to adapt, and you're going to be stuck in your bed with a sore ankle the rest of your life.
Exactly.
You know,
weightlifting breaks the rule. Well, it breaks the rules that fitness holds dear, you know, quite often, like pressing behind the neck, pressing a bar behind the neck, for example, you know, and like one I still get questioned a lot about is squatting with knees in front of your toes. Can you shed some light on that? And you know, it wasn't that long ago that we still taught this, and I still get uni students coming to me all the time saying that, they'll be there to train with me, and they're squatting very funny, and I'm like, what's going on here? Can you get your knees going more forward? And like, are you sure we can do that? I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it. Come on. And so it comes around quite a lot. Can you shed some light on maybe why that came around, and then why it is actually a fallacy?
So we'll talk about the press behind neck first. Yes, when you put the bar behind your head, right, and you're going to push the bar up above your head, okay, yes, your shoulder is in a open pack position. Okay, so we have a closed and open pack position. So it's an open pack position. So yes, there is a potential there that something could happen. There's no doubt about that. But you don't go there and you put, 40 kilos on there, which is way out of your ability. You're going to start with maybe a 15 kilo bar or whatever. Most of the time when you're doing something behind your head, okay, and we do lots of jerks behind our head. Like we did jerks the other day. In fact, I think from memory, our guys are doing jerk behind their head twice a week at the moment. And no one's got any shoulder problems. Okay, yes, we've got a couple of people who have some shoulder inflexibility, and we have some people who are pushing with their arms and hence smacking themselves in the back of the head on the way up. Yes,
that's me.
That's a technical fault. That's you using your arms. And if you're not using your arms, what are you using? Well, you're going to use your legs. So you're actually driving the bar above your head with your legs, not your arms when you're doing push press and jerks and all that sort of stuff. Press behind the neck is not necessarily supposed to be a very heavy weight. So if you choose to go super heavy, well, then you choose to put your shoulder in a slightly more disadvantaged position because of where it is, especially if you're tight through the upper body. And people become tight through the upper body because of a whole bunch of exercises like bench press. I've got no issue against bench press.
Me either.
But when people move, when they do my little test, my squat tests, I say, well, what happened from your hips down? And they go, well, I squatted. What happened from your hips up? Well, my arms moved into a new position. Well, why is that? Well, that's because I'm tight through the shoulders. So that person is not ready to do any sort of press behind neck at the moment. So we have to work on the front, work on their flexibility, blah, blah, blah.
Sure. So you like to go to the idea of, mobilizing before applying, weight to that kind of movement.
Yeah. So you put the exercise there as a challenge to the athlete. And if they can't do it, then you just make them press from in front. And then it's their responsibility to get that work, so do the works. They can do it behind their head. We've got a couple of people who have played footy, league and union, who have smashed their shoulders as a result.
Yes.
They can't do it, so they just do everything from the front.
I think a lot of their flexibility issues is just the fact that they have been ramming into one another for quite a long time. And then, your muscles, I think they, this is just me being completely unscientific, but from what I can sort of make of it, it just seems like the muscles are kind of like, tensing in order to brace for the blow, and then, or just being some trauma happening, and then the muscle is staying tense after a while from that, and then years of that, really, I feel like that's what seems to make the shoulders really inflexible. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It certainly can be. It can be joint issues. These guys are strapping their shoulders up, holding their shoulders together, and still going out there and using the upper body to tackle people. It could be a whole bunch of combinations. But if someone says that I just can't do it, then fair enough. We won't do it. As far as squatting is concerned, well, we squat two different ways. Right, we can, if we look at sports, we can squat a powerlifting way, and we can squat a weightlifting way. There's a lot of weightlifters out there that will like I'm talking in the elite end of weightlifting, who could easily out squat a lot of powerlifters. Not all of them, but the weights that some of these guys are using without knee wraps, without a super suit, without a powerlifting belt, without this, without that, and I remember there was a question posed, well, how come weightlifters can squat so heavy with so little equipment, whereby powerlifters, especially the geared up powerlifters, meaning the guys that wear the extra apparel. Weightlifting's got 48 positives from the last two Olympic Games. So from
who are we to be pointing fingers, hey?
We're just hanging on by our fingertips going to the Olympic Games for 2024. So we'll see what happens with that. So it's not about the gear, not about steroids I'm talking about, but just about what they wear.
Yes.
And a lot of it's got to, weightlifters just squat more often. And we do. Like my guys are squatting minimum 4 times a week, squatting. And plus add snatch and clean and jerk.
Exactly, which is, it's in itself is squatting.
Yeah, it's there's tons of it. So
much squatting.
You've got the powerlifting, where they really want to have the bar relatively low on their back. They want to lean forward. They want to use a lot of their hamstrings, glutes, lower back, quads to stand up, because they basically just try to do the biggest back squat that they can. We do front squat and back squat. In the new program, we're concentrating more on, this is the new one that's coming, not the one that they're doing now. They're going to do a lot more front squat work than back squat work. They don't know that yet, but that's what's going to happen to them. And front squat is relatively upright, and your knees have to go past your toes to do that. And when you are squatting, let's say Olympic style, when you hit rock bottom, which is a problem that most people have, they can't hit rock bottom. Hence, a lot of tension is going through the knees. But if you can hit rock bottom, so, you know, do a pause squat as an example. You just sit down there in that bottom position. There's weight in your knee, but it's relatively small. Most of the weight's in your hip, you know, and then you drive up. And then when your quads are approximately parallel to the ground, now your knees are getting smashed.
Yes.
But if you have a look at most people when they squat, they're lucky to just get to parallel with their thighs. That's to the ground I'm talking about. And so their knees are going to get smashed, because then they stand up from there. So then they go, well, you can't squat like that because it's going to hurt your knees. So then they go, well, I'm going to put the bar lower on my back and push my bum backwards. And I'm going to use more of a powerlifting style. So my shins are straight up and down rather than inclined forward. So people make those modifications because they don't have the flexibility to get to the bottom. One of my weightlifting girls, she's a good snatcher. She's a master's lifter. She's a good snatcher. And she would stop maybe, you know, you can't really see, but, you know, yay far from hitting rock bottom. She would stop, and then sort of that little bit there, she would go down slowly. And I told her, you've got to get rid of that. Right. I need your tissues, the tissues around your joints, the muscle tissue, everything to be able to go that much further down without causing you a drama. So when you snatch, you are in the bottom, and your Golgi tendon organs aren't going to turn on and make your muscles relax and drop that weight.
Yes.
And so that's what she's been working on. And she just did a PB, you know, 1 or 2 kilo PB, but, you know, it's better because she took that advice on board and got deeper. So, look, people can squat how they want. I'm not a, you know, you want a high bar squat, low bar squat, back squat in my gym, go for it. I don't really care. But when we do front squat, you've got to stay upright and your knees have to go forward. There is no way you can squat, front squat, without your knees going past your toes.
You know, that's one of the most amazing things about weightlifting, is that I think it's great for the general preparedness of an athlete. So it does have the, you know, aspects of strength and speed, but in order to do a snatch, you need to put your joints in the most extreme ranges of motion possible. Your ankles are at full flexion, your knees are at full flexion, your hips are in a very, you know, they need to be quite loose and be very quite mobile. Your shoulder mobility has to be outstanding. And these are all great attributes for an athlete to have, because if you can do these things, you'll be functioning at close to 100%. But if you can't get your, let's say your knee over your toe, then you've got some sort of ankle mobility issues, and that could be letting you down somewhere in your sport, depending on what sport you play, which is quite interesting. But you know what's another interesting thing with the squat? You know, as much as I'm very much a weightlifting type squatter, like, you know, guys like Louis Simmons seems to think that a powerlifting type squat, particularly a box squat though, but a powerlifting type squat would be more inducive of sports performance than a weightlifting type squat, because he believes that you get more hamstring, glute, and back activation. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's Louis Simmons and powerlifting, and he box squats and he does wide stance box squat. He's made that statement that people who wide stance back squat can narrow stance, but narrow stance can't go to wide stance. So,
but you could also say that narrow stance helps wide stance, but wide stance doesn't help narrow stance increase strength, which is another one I've heard, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, so
mm,
Louis has been around for a very long time. Not many people know who Louis Simmons is, but those who do, he's been through the wars as a powerlifter in the 60s and all of that sort of stuff. So he's been around, he's done his homework, he's adopted some Russian methodology, made adaptations from weightlifting to powerlifting, which is what he's an expert at. He's an expert at gear, so that's wearing assistance of clothing. He's an expert at that. He's got a few raw powerlifters, and I'm not here to comment about Louis, but I'm never going to say anything bad about Louis or Mark Rippetoe, because Rippetoe has the same belief. His squatting technique is to lean over to make sure that you engage as much muscle mass as you can, and that's including your hamstrings and so forth. You know, and there's all valid arguments for that, and I would certainly change someone's squatting technique if I had to that technique. Again, I don't think we need to be, you know, nailed to one belief. I know people make money from that. I understand that. They've got to push a program. If they honestly believe that, then I think they're doing a little bit of disservice to themselves and their clientele. You need to be a little bit more open than that. So I'll make adjustments for people all the time. Like they'll come, "Oh, Steve, this or that," and I'll go, "Yep, let's just try that then." And then we try something new, and wacky do, it works, and we just keep going. You know?
Yeah,
so,
I guess my kind of point is like, it seems like the wide stance squat, because you are sort of leaning over some more, and I know they're kind of a little bit more extreme, because the idea of them sort of sitting back, they sit back more than a non-geared lifter, and not just because of the bar placement, but also because they're wearing a powerlifting suit, and they try to push back into that suit in order to get some help from the suit. So that's a little bit different, but I guess the idea of, like, you know, getting your hamstrings super strong, your glutes super strong, your lower back super strong, I guess that kind of does lend itself to sprinting, for example. So I guess that kind of makes a little bit of sense when you think about it that way. So, and it kind of irks me to say that, because I'm more of a weightlifting kind of guy, but, you know, sometimes you just gotta, you know, take the goods of everything, I suppose.
Yes, I'm a weightlifting guy as well, but it's barbell sports, and we all like to train with the bar, and we have to make those adaptations and changes to what's in front of us. If you close one eye, you only see two-dimensionally, and it limits your ability. So you have to have both eyes open and be willing to accept, you know what, that's really good stuff. I bought Louis Simmons' weightlifting book.
So did I.
Didn't teach me anything, you know, but I still bought it. I still wanted to know what he said. I've looked at all of Mark Rippetoe's stuff. I listened to a lot of his podcasts, and it's all good information. He's got science and stuff to back him up. That's all good stuff as well. And then you've got other people who have other opinions. I think we need to listen to everybody and learn from everybody, and then we need to make a decision. We need to come up with our philosophy. My philosophy is pretty simple. You know, to be open to listen, but my real philosophy is that you've got to do thousands of hours of training with hundreds and hundreds of repetitions. And
that's not a very sexy thing to say, unfortunately, but it's so true.
Yeah, and people will find their way.
Yes.
You know, people will find the way that their body finds the best way to do whatever activity that they're going to do. My activity that I teach is Olympic weightlifting. And I know if the lifter is patient enough, that they will find their most efficient way of lifting. Sure, we have to guide them. We have to make sure the bar's close. We have to explain all of that. You know, there are basic fundamentals that people have to follow.
Yes.
But after that, they'll find their way. Like, you look at world championship, you take every single world champion, watch how they snatch. And if you can tell me that every single world champion snatches exactly the same way, then I'll go that one way. But I can tell you they don't.
They do not.
They don't clean the same way, and they don't jerk the same way. So everyone has their own way, because that's how their body works.
Man, some of them lift ugly as hell, but
so
they
what?
still do it. You know, they still do
it.
That's it.
You know, we don't get judged on style points. Sure, we get judged on technique, but the technique that that person is currently doing is the best technique for them. That's it. If that's the best for them, then that's it. That's what works, especially if you're world champion, especially if you're world record holder.
Then you're the man, you know, then your technique's right. Everyone else needs to prove themselves.
You know, so yeah, it's so with the squatting type of thing, you're going to have people who are going to argue that it hurts their knee, or maybe it hurts their knees because they can't get depth and transfer that weight into their hips. Maybe they just don't get low enough. You know, maybe they're trying to externally rotate their femurs too much, which I see, you've got to push your knees out, got to push your knees out, push your knees out. No, you don't have to. Just sit down. If your knees roll in, they roll in. That's fine. They're designed to do that. There's no drama. If you look at these weightlifters like Kakis Willis, the bottom of his snatch position, his feet are outside of his hips.
True.
His femurs are rolled in.
Yeah, that's so true.
And he's got a massive set of thighs.
Yes, he does.
And there's nothing wrong with your knee, like internal rotation. Like, it just frustrates me when I hear these blanket statements. It's just not true.
Seldom will you ever see a female Asian weightlifter not have their knees come in. You know, it is almost a given, you know, and they're the best and it works. So it's hard to argue that, isn't it?
Yeah, the Chinese believe that you have to be balanced, okay? They have zero issue about your knees rolling in. Zero. Not a problem whatsoever. And I did this on a YouTube thing that I did, and I've sort of killed the YouTube thing that I had because I'm just going to put it on Instagram. It's just easier. But I talk about how your femur is made, right? And your condyle, one of your condyles is longer at the distal end, and your knee is made to rotate. Everyone that's going to listen to this, maybe it's just you and me, but whoever your audience is, if you sit down, you can medially and laterally rotate your shin, okay? Well, that tells me that your knee is not a hinge joint, it's a bicondylar joint. It's got two big condyles at the end of it, and your knee is made to rotate. Sure, it hinges, but it can rotate as well. So it's a biaxial joint. A hinge is a uniaxial joint. So it's made to do that. So you will find a lot of people will internally rotate their hips to stand up with a big weight. Kakis Willis, and a lot of the Chinese, Japanese, like, it's not an issue, okay? Sure, there are people with certain medical conditions and all of that. I understand that, but we're talking about people who are generally very healthy. Like, let's not pick on people like the outliners. Let's just look at what's in front of us and just watch weightlifting. And you'll see it's not a problem. You watch some of these powerlifting federations and they're nowhere near even parallel.
Yes.
Like, of course your knees aren't going to roll in if you're not at parallel.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, but if you go below parallel and you're lifting a massive weight, well, that could very well happen.
It probably will.
You know, the push the knees out, you know, that's something that's come around just lately. I'm not a fan of that at all. Yes,
I've heard a weightlifter, I don't know where he's from, but he said one of the biggest things they think about when they do weightlifting is push the knees forward, you know, coming down and coming out of the squat. If the knees come in, fine, whatever, but the idea is kind of just drive them forward. And then that kind of, I tried that myself and I found that I get a little bit more sort of glute activation that kind of keeps me a little bit more upright in the squat. But, you know, yeah, I mean, that's actually such a good point. I wish I had written that down and actually ask you that question. So
it could be just a really good cue word for that particular lifter.
Oh, that's such a good point too. Yeah.
You know, for them to keep their chest up. So yeah, it could be just a personal preference thing as a cue for him, and that's what he says to himself or herself to do that. And that's fine. If it works for them, it works for them.
Do you have I got one more, sort of the last kind of question really, but if you were to say you've got a daughter and she does some weightlifting, I'm guessing.
So my daughter has basically done all the things that I've said that kids should do. So she's done judo. She enjoyed it, but just there were too many boys and not enough girls. So she sort of left judo, but she did judo. She did gymnastics, and one of her best friends is still doing gymnastics.
So she's gone down that route, I guess.
Yeah, she does. She trains in the gym every Saturday. She comes to the gym and she trains, and she's a good breaststroker. So the 4 things that I said that I think kids should do, I've made my daughter do that. She doesn't play judo anymore. She doesn't do gymnastics anymore. She trains very, very easy. She's not a weightlifter, doesn't want to be a weightlifter. And we don't swim all year round. We only swim in summer because we swim in the ocean. So we just swim at in a harbour beaches and stuff like that.
Nice.
And she, like I said, she's a very, very good breaststroker. And she doesn't swim competitively or anything like that. So.
And I guess the kids just got to have that kind of drive to want to do that, I guess.
That's right.
And I suppose the question I'm going to ask you now then is that, say if you had a kid that, and you had total control over, how they'd go about their development, and they were driven to a specific sport, and they really wanted to do well in that sport, how would you get them to a professional level if that was possible? From a young age.
Any sport?
Any sport.
Okay, so the first thing that I think that the kid should do is fundamentally do something along the line that I said before that kids should do. They don't necessarily have to do, judo or anything like that. But in this country, every kid should swim. There's no doubt about that.
That's so true.
We need every kid to be able to do the swimming side of things. Basically, let them play lots and lots of different sports, because that exposure to different sports gives them the ability to have a lot of different motor patterns. Now, sure, we can have a kid who can do one particular thing, and they can do that one particular thing pretty well. But that child is then, in my belief, limited because there's no way that they could go through every single type of movement in that one particular sport. So if they do lots of different sports, they can still concentrate on their main one, but they do lots of different sports, obviously not burning the kid out, which I've seen a few parents, potentially do. It's another issue.
It is.
And then that child then has the ability to pull out whatever sort of maneuver that they need because they've done it potentially somewhere else. Then we can start getting that child more and more into their particular sport.
And what age would you sort of be looking at this at?
Oh, so kids, young kids should be playing at school. And that's one of the big problems that I have. Lots of play has been taken away from kids at school. Kids tend to sit at home and look at their, computer stuff. My daughter's certainly one of those as well. So, she spends a little bit too much time, I believe, on the old the Google world. We did a trial, just as a side note, for 10 days where she was only allowed to read from her phone. She's a big reader. So she was reading stuff and not playing any games. She did that for 10 days, and she said, yeah, that was awesome. I feel really good, but she's dropped back into the same habits that she had before, like within 24 hours.
Yes, it's very addictive.
So kids have to learn to play. They use their imagination, they make up their own rules, they make a democracy, they do all sorts of things, and so they need that. So that's what they need to do, lots of different things. But so that would start in kindergarten and primary school. Get these kids out there and get them moving. Once they get into an older age in primary school, then they can start concentrating on things that their body is made for, whether they're a distance person or a power person. Then from there, once they get into high school, then they can start looking at more specific distance, or I'm just splitting it up into those two groups, distance stuff or power stuff.
Yes.
And then find something that they enjoy, but they still need to be able to do stuff in let's say they pick a power thing that they are able to do, shot put, discus, javelin, weightlifting, gymnastics, all those power things. And then eventually they can pick what they want, and we can start specialising them at, let's say, the age of 15. They go, okay, this is what we want. This is what I want to do. And then we can go down that track and get them developed. No one seems to have a problem specialising kids in gymnastics straight away at a very young age. Get all these burnouts. No one has an issue with kids specialising in soccer at a very young age, like in the UK. The stuff that I've heard from there when I've gone to the ASCA conference and they've got guest speakers come out from there. So we do specialise kids at a very young age in some sports.
Sometimes
but if I said,
early,
if I want to specialise your child in weightlifting from the age of 8, I don't think I'd get much support in this country over that. Right? No. And I don't necessarily mean that they have to do that. I would certainly get them to do weightlifting, but they would be doing other power events. So sprinting 200 metre sprint, or even 50-metre sprint, because they're going to burn out relatively quickly because they're only still young kids. Shot put, javelin, whatever, and to develop that fast twitch or slow twitch, or if you're neither one of those two, then you might find a team sport or a sport where you can, slot into where you're not, long distance runner or long distance athlete or a power athlete. You're more in the middle. So there's heaps of options, and this is why I think we need PE teachers in primary school, and then you've got your coaches there in high school shuffling those kids out. Like there's that story where I can't remember his name, but he's the gold medal long jumper at the Olympic Games, and his basketball coach said, "Mate, you're pretty good, but you're not that good. You should go and do athletics." He went to athletics and became world champion at long jump.
Wow.
And that's a good coach.
That's a great coach. No coach would ever say that. No coach want to hold you close and dear. They don't want to let go of any other athletes.
Oh, mate, we don't own anyone. And anyone who thinks that they own someone's an idiot.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a coach, you're there to try to make that person the best that they can be. And if that's in your sport or not in your sport, then you need to realise that. And send them off to somewhere else that maybe someone else can help them.
Exactly.
What I mean?
I really like that. So you sort of start off, you're generalizing them basically. So you're going from learning different attributes. So, spatial awareness, you're picking up different, all sorts of different skills. Yep. And then, you're also opening up the child to an idea that, there's all these different sports out there. And then, you can see which one they excel at and then which one they kind of like as well. And then you sort of go down that route more specifically. So you get a bit more specialized as they sort of reaching maybe, what would you say, like 16 or something like
15,
that?
I think. 15.
Right. And I suppose that goes back to that idea of general improves specific.
Yeah, look, there's all these terminologies that I can tell you I either have forgotten or I don't even know because I don't keep up to date with all the new stuff that comes out. I'm a bit of a dinosaur with all of the new terminology. But yeah, basically what we're looking for is a child that enjoys power stuff and they have those attributes to become a power athlete.
Yes.
And it could be anything, any power event. They could play in a team sport. Like in America, you could be a power athlete, but you would certainly make it in the NFL if you were a power athlete,
Yep.
So there's lots of avenues. All we're trying to do is to pull out the best that kid is at and give them every opportunity at every different type of sport that they could possibly make it in. And then eventually they're going to become good at one or two of them. There was that American guy as well who played professional baseball and also NFL. I can't remember his name, but he was a freak athlete. And then you had Jordan who could play basketball and golf pretty well.
He had a shot at baseball too, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I think he played in the minor leagues, whereby this guy I was thinking of, he played in the major leagues baseball and then also played for one of the big NFL teams and was a superstar in both.
Yes.
I think it was Bo something, but I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah. So he was given the opportunity, and the good thing is that the teams that paid him big money didn't hold him back. They allowed him to go out there and experience sport for everything that it was, and become good at two sports. You know, good on the owners for those two teams that allowed him to do that.
Yeah, especially at that level, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're worth a lot of money.
Lots and lots of money, you know. Jesus, especially in the States. Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't ask you? Or is there anything, you know, maybe you wanted to mention?
No, not really. Look, you sent me an outline. I'll tell you the truth. I read the outline maybe when you first sent it to me, and then I haven't looked at it since.
Yeah.
I don't like to read questions. I want you to ask, and I'll just give you the best answer I can. If I start to think about what answer I'm going to give you, then it's not true.
Well, that's true too. You don't want to.
It's not a real answer.
Yeah.
So no, I don't. I think everything you've asked me has been really good, and hopefully I've been able to explain myself in the way that I think. And everyone has their own way of thinking, and everyone thinks, you know, this way and that way, but we're all trying to achieve the same goal. And as long as people are enjoying themselves in that process, because training and sport is hard enough. We don't then need the pressure, outside pressure of not enjoying it and making it a burden. There's no point in that. If all those people down there who are now training, and it's, what is it? It's 6:30 at night on a Saturday night, and they're all in there busting themselves then, and they're having a good time, then, mate, I can't complain, because they're all getting better, they're all staying healthy, they're all moving well, and they're enjoying it. That's why they're here. You know, so something must be going right if they're here at 6:30 on a Saturday night.
That's right. They should be going out to dinner or something.
Yeah, well, I know that a few of them have talked about that they might go out to a steakhouse or something. So
yeah, that's nice. That's good. It's good for community. So,
well, that's the other thing. The other thing, and you were talking about kids, just really quickly. The other thing that should happen with kids is that they need to learn, even though if they're going to be in an individual sport, they need to learn how to work in a team. I think that's really important as well. I think they need to understand that there is a bigger picture than them. They can certainly be the focus when they become an individual athlete, but they also have to be able to work in a team, so they understand that, just like the saying that a village brings up a child, a village brings up an athlete as well.
Yes, exactly. You know? That's a good point, because individual
sport
like weightlifting,
need to know that.
Yeah, and individual sport like weightlifting is hardly an individual sport.
It's not. That's right. Like, these guys all rely on each other down there to train as a team.
That's right, and they rely on their coach for advice and you know, technical guidance as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then if they're not playing as a team member, they mightn't show up for training for a couple of weeks without even telling their coach.
Yeah.
You know, it's hardly a team sport. You can't act like an individual. Yeah,
but we very much have a team atmosphere in our gym. We try to make it that, but it is very much an individual sport, and I think that comes from more of the way that we play sport in this country. We play lots of team sports. Okay, so a lot of these guys come from team sports, and they understand what a team is. There's a lot of sports around the world that you can go to different countries where you're very much an individual, but in that case, I think you need to be brought up as a team. Sure, you can be, you know, a bunch of tennis players who are playing individually, but you need to be together, you know, as a team, so you understand that when I get older and I'm dealing with, you know, other people, that they're there to help me to become the best that I can be. And I think, you know, there are a few examples where we've seen a few people have a dummy spit and have forgotten that. And I'm talking about in Australian sport. I'm not going to say any names. People can pick whoever they want to pick. And yes, athletes have to be selfish. I understand that as well, because they've got to think about them becoming better, but they need to be brought up in a team environment so they understand that there's more than just them.
Yes.
You know, they can't do it on their own. If you think you can, go and find an isolated spot, train by yourself, coach yourself, do everything yourself. I can tell you that they've then got to think about getting their food, you know, cooking their food, booking their airline tickets, all the things. They can't do it.
No.
There's a group of people behind them, and they have to understand that's their team.
And there's like maybe one athlete in the world that does that or something. Yeah, it's never that case. You know, it's always rely on.
Yeah. So I very much, that's a big thing that I believe also that kids have to go through and do it as a team.
So where can we find out more about you? Find out more about weightlifting?
Well, you said about me, I'm on Instagram. So most of the stuff that we put up on about the gym is at Odd Socks Ultra Fully.
And you're not much of a. And when you say you probably just mean Odd Socks.
Yeah, so we've got that Instagram account, and there's a Facebook with that as well.
Yes.
I have my own Facebook, which is just Steve Tikkanen, and I have my own my family Instagram thing, which I don't put much up, just a bit here and there. But I also have Sissel Weightlifting, where I put up my opinions about certain things, and that's where I put up my little Instagram posts about things that I think can happen in weightlifting, or I talk about anatomy or something like that.
Yep, and get into more heated debates.
Yeah, potentially. Like, you know, I don't want any debates. I'm too old, mate. Like, I've had enough fights. I don't want to fight anyone anymore. I just want to enjoy sport and make people better. I'm a teacher and I'm a coach. It's basically the same thing.
It is, yeah.
You know, so that's all I want. I just want people to have a good time and enjoy their sport. I don't care what level you get to. No one can be Usain Bolt. There's very few Olympic gold medalists around in the world. They're the elite. We're not. I'd like to have an elite athlete, you know, but that's just how it is. I was there once. Now I'm just happy looking after all the people that come into the gym and, like I said, have a good time and become the best that they can be.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Steve. I really appreciate it.
No worries, mate.